What's going on YouTube? Omar aka Tebow back with you again. First of all, I want to wish every one of you guys who's watching this a very happy new year. Welcome to 2019. The first day of 2019 also happens to be a Tuesday, and it's Tamiya Tuesday. So we are going to kick off the new year with a new build, and I'm going to be building the TA02S Lancia 037 Rally chassis. Pretty excited to build this guy. I have quite a few of these TA02s, two of the 934 Jägermeister Porsches, and then I also have one of the other Porsches that's on the, I think it's the short wheelbase version of it. But regardless, I'm pretty excited to build this guy. I will be running my Futaba 4PX transmitter for it, using a Power HD, just standard 13 kilogram servo, and using the kit included TBLE 02 ESC and the motor, which is, I think it's a torque tune, but it just might be a silver can. Regardless, once I do have the build done, it'll be a little bit before I get to the body. I want to do the body justice. This is an ABS plastic body. It's highly detailed. It's beautiful. It's got the lovely Martini graphics on it, which is, if you've ever put the stickers on for one of these Martini vehicles, man, it's a lot of stickers that go on there. But I want to paint that right, and it is 2 degrees outside. So being that I paint my garage, it's not a heated garage, I don't know when I'll get around to the body, but the chassis will have completed, and by the time it's done, I'll put the unpainted body on there just so you guys get an idea. Pretty excited for this build, so without further ado, let's get into it. Alright guys, jumping into parts bag 1 and step 1, we're going to start off building the rear differential. This kit, like a few of the other TA02s that Tamiya's coming out with recently, has a ball diff in the rear and a gear diff in the front. I like that. It allows you to tune it. I'm not going to be racing this car, but it's nice that I can go ahead and set it up. As far as all the greases and everything, Tamiya includes it. Make sure you have your tools, an X-Acto knife, a couple of screwdrivers, Phillips head, preferably JIS tip if you can get them, needle nose pliers, some side cutters to cut your parts off the sprues, and then you know, I have my little assorted bag of tricks when it comes to the other pieces. But let's just jump right into it. First thing we're going to do is get our diff rings on, and all of this does need to be greased. I do grease both sides of the diff rings just to keep things simple, provided I can get some of this grease to come out. There we go. I am never afraid to use my fingers and get it dirty. So, you know, when you're building an RC car, you're gonna get a little bit dirty. I happen to have some extra grease. One word about these diff rings. One of the things you'll notice is the way that they're cut. One side, especially on the inner ring, is going to seem beveled or rounded, and the other one is flat. I always leave the flat side against the piece of metal that it's going to be going up against. Alright, got that on there. It's nice and greased. And then we'll grab our gear. Get the grease off my fingers. And then this guy sits over like so. And then the other thing I like to do is, for balls, I just like to put a little dab in each one of the holes. A little bit of diff grease in there. I'll just ensure that once the balls are seated in there, that they're properly lubricated, in case you missed anything on these pieces. Now that we have that there, part of the other reason why I do that is it helps keep everything in there. Be careful when you're rolling these ball diffs out onto a flat surface that they don't go all over on you and you lose one. They're tiny. I have gone carpet hunting for one of these many times. So just get it in there, get them holes. Oh, well, would you look at that? This is not very common, but it appears, because of Tamiya, I'm kind enough to give you 2 extra diff balls. So, if what I said previously happens and you lose one of these in the carpet, well, guess what? You are in luck because you have a couple extras. And that's always nice. That also means I have to go and find my bag that they came in. Put them back, because otherwise I will certainly lose them. Okay. By the way, in case you're worried about this being a 30-minute video, it won't be. I've decided I'm going to split this up into multiple parts, so I don't have to worry about making a really couple long videos. Instead, I'll just do a number of them in smaller, shorter chunks, and we'll just go in sections. Again, grease this guy up. Most of the time I tell you to be very light on the grease. In a ball diff, you can go a little heavy. It's not going to hurt. And again, sharp edge upper facing the metal. Slip that down. And then we need to grab our gear pieces. And our top pressure plate. Be aware of how it goes in. I mean, it only goes in one way. So pop your pressure plate in. And get this guy in there. You know what? I am going to take a moment and grab my Tamiya grease as well. And put a little bit of grease on the splines. Do that on camera for you guys. So just a tad bit of grease on these splines. Nothing crazy. And we'll fit that guy in there. Don't worry if everything falls apart on you. That is surely going to happen when you're putting this together. Just try to make sure everything goes in the way it's supposed to. Okay. So, now that we got that in there, we're going to flip it over. And we're going to get ready for the thrust bearing assembly that's going to go in. I just want to take a look at the balls, make sure they're all seated. Everything is greased up and good to go. Let's flip that back on there. Okay. There we are. We'll just set that aside. And now you have to be very careful and pay attention to the way that all of your little shims are going to go. So they have a specific direction to them. There is a concave, and so you're going to put these two together kind of like a hi-hat on drums. So curve at the top, curve at the bottom, making a tiny little miniature little UFO. So make sure you get those guys in there. So we have those two. And they're on the right way. They are going to be followed up by one of our thrust washers, which is the one with the larger hole. Now on your thrust washer, make sure you get some diff grease on there, because we're going to have the thrust balls sitting on it as well, and we want to make sure that they're lubricated. So just apply a coat. Again, I'll do both sides. It doesn't matter. lubricated. Okay. And then we need to get our plastic piece. Also do the little trick. Just put a little lube on all these holes. I don't give you much diff grease in these things, so don't go crazy with it because you could run out. Okay, I got that on there. Let me grab my little paper towel so I'm not making a huge mess here. Although when you build diffs, you're usually going to make a mess. Which is okay. Alright. Very carefully. These are the smallest ones. You don't want to lose them. Should be 6. And Tamiya do give you 2 extras, so that's nice. This is the hardest part now, is getting these little tiny things in these little holes. Okay. That's where that grease helps. Sometimes if we can get a little bit of grease on the end of a Allen wrench, you can pick those guys up and get them placed. Come on, there we go. Awesome. Let's clean that off. Grease off our fingers. Let's put our 2 spares back in the bag before we lose them. We'll set those aside with the others. Okay, so take a look here. There we go. Put our assembly in. Make sure those balls don't fall out. Sit it down on the washer. Now that we've done that, we are going to put our top thrust washer, which is the one that has the narrower hole. Again, grease it. Good liberal amount. Get it all over. Okay. Plunk that guy down there. That's going to be followed up by another set of 3 of these washers. So when we go with these guys, it is going to be the symbol like previously, but the one below is facing up. So we have one that is, if you can see the curve, curving downwards. Then our UFO setup. Okay, I have plenty of grease on my fingers in case you didn't see me grease these, so I've just been using some of the grease that's on my fingers to get them nice and greasy. So this one is going to go like a bowl down, and then the one on top is going to go like that. Okay. It's kind of unusual. They gave us 3 of these, but we only need 2 of them. And I've double checked, triple checked the instructions because I always worry about that. But it seems to be fine. Last little look at this grease on our bolt. grease up. There we go. Get the grease out of the way. And then we need our box wrench. Let's put that in there. As such. Alright, clean off my hands. Messy business. Then we'll just use our box wrench to hopefully get this to screw down. Okay. Screwing down. Allen key here to hold the bottom. As far as what you want for the tightness on these, you want to be able to hold both these sides and not allow this to turn. So let me see. Do I have another Allen wrench or something I can use to test this? I don't. But generally, if you can hold it, you don't want to be able to spin it. I did, I've built so many of these things that when I tightened it, I had a good feel for it. I can feel the diff movement, and it feels pretty spot on. It's a good starting point, but you can always take it apart if you need to go a little bit tighter or looser. But I do highly recommend grabbing 2 Allen wrenches or 2 somethings that you can get into the joints to hold them, and then as you're holding those 2 ends, just try to spin the middle. So right now you can see if I hold one end and spin it, it spins. The end on it, hold the other end, it should still spin. But if I hold both ends and then try to spin the middle, it should not move. And I am there. I'm pretty happy with the feel for it. So we have assembled our rear differential unit. The last thing I'm going to do is on this side, this side, which is the last side that I put in, I am going to just apply a tad bit of grease on the splines because I didn't do it on this one, just for some longevity. And that is step 1, and our rear differential is now completed. Step 2, we are going to install our rear differential into our rear gearbox. 2 pieces, 4 3x10 screws, 2 bearings. The kit doesn't come with bearings, but I have my little box of bearings. I will tell you right now, I think I'm short a couple because I use a couple odd sizes. They're 12, 10 I think is what Tamiya calls it, and I forgot the exact size of it. I'm just going to use the bushings that they have in the kit, and I have a bearing order in place because my little box of bearings is getting low. This thing is usually full of bearings. So whatever I am missing, I'll eventually just put in the next time. Before we do this, let's get our grease. We want to go ahead and make sure that we grease up our diff. Not a lot, just a little bit. Just to get a little bit of grease. The splines. And there we go. Okay, just a light little coating. Goes a long way and it'll work itself out in there. Just be aware of which side goes where. And take this piece out. Slide the 2 bearings in. You know, this is kind of tricky with a greased up thing. So 2 bearings are going to sit there. Well, they will in just a moment. I'm going to grab my little towel so I can set this down. Just make life a little bit easier. There we go. I can put those guys in. So you have that. You do need to remove these pieces. This won't go in there properly. That in. Now we can slide the bearings. Gives us something to wedge against. And now we can put our pieces back in. Hopefully get it to sit. Shouldn't be too difficult. There we go. Put our rear cover on. And screw in with our 4 screws. As always, when we do our screws, hand tight. You don't want to strip your plastic out anywhere applicable when you have a multi-screw setup like I do here. Try to do the star pattern, not to put too much stress here, here on any one side. Good plastic, slightly harder stuff compared to the Chemical Grasshopper. If you watch that build, that used a lot of the softer plastics. As far as I've noticed, nowhere in this kit is there any of that newer softer plastic. It's just the traditional good Tamiya plastic. There's about 2 different compounds of plastic in there. That's it. Alright, so step 2, our rear differential. It's in our gearbox. Give it a good spin. Make sure everything is moving the way that it should. And that is step 2 done. In steps 3 and 4, we're going to go ahead and attach our motor to our rear gearbox. Step 3 has us grab the pinion spacer. So slides right over the motor. I'm going to put our, oops, I should have started this. Little grub screw in our 21 tooth pinion. Okay. We'll put the supplied motor spacer on top of the motor. Throw our pinion in there. Make sure you are getting the flat side of the motor shaft up so that your pinion seats properly. And give this a good little turn. You don't want to strip out your grub screw, but you do want it tight. You could use some of the red anaerobic gel if you wanted to, but I found that these things hold pretty well. I rarely ever have a pinion come loose on me just by going hand tight. Now that we have our pinion spaced on the motor, I'm going to grab the motor mount. Only thing to pay attention to is there are all sorts of holes to line up based on your teeth on your pinions. We have a 21, so we just got to make sure that when I do this, I should have actually left the stupid collar on. Just pull the cardboard over it. Doesn't matter if it gets a little ripped up by this pinion. There we go. Where are my motor holes? There they are. Okay. So I just got to make sure that I line up 21 and 21 for my 2 holes that they're going to go into. With a couple little button head screws. That'll do the trick. Set that down. Get our screw in our screwdriver. 21, 21. them up. Let's grab our other screw. All was lined up. There we go. Screw that guy in. And hand tight. It's plastic. Should keep it on there pretty tight. You don't want to do it too hard because you don't want to crack the plastic. Now that we have that, we are going to go to step 4, which involves mounting it into the chassis. So pretty straightforward. Can only go in one way. I do like to take this moment and look and make sure that my pinion is in about the right place. It's not touching the top of the case, it's not. That spacing should be fine. For step 4, the only thing you need are 2 3x10s and a couple of washers. So let me set that down. Let's get the washer going. And then we'll screw these two guys in. Nice and hand tight. We have our motor attached to our rear gearbox with the differential in place. Everything is looking pretty good so far. This is where I'm going to leave it for part 1, and we'll be back in part 2.